and welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo series podcast. Today is Friday, January 10th, 2025, and you're listening to episode 24, The Tragic History of Solo and Jimmy. My name is Angela Traficante.
And I'm Krista Watanabe. And we're going to be breaking down Silo Season 2, Episode 9, The Safeguard. And oh my god, wow. What an episode. I mean, we had talked last week, right? About how it was going to be like the tipping point, right?
Yeah, that was really great. Really loved it.
Yeah, and the response online has been amazing. There's so many comments on Reddit. Me and Andrew were just talking about there's well over 2,000 comments. So people are loving it. And that's only in the show watchers thread. We have a book readers thread too, and that one is pretty big too.
That one also has like 1,000 comments.
Yeah, so big response. It's so exciting, and that's actually partially why I think we're recording today. I was just really eager to get this recorded because I want to talk about it. I watched it again today with the people in the Discord for the watch party, and there are a bunch of first-time watchers in there, and it was really fun to see people reacting while I already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm fresh off a watch from like a few hours ago. I would normally watch it on Friday mornings, but we had to watch it in the evening. And yeah, it's like I watched it and now I'm like right here to talk about it.
Yeah. All right. So the episode puts us right back in with Silo 17, and it's actually taking us into the past, right? It's got plants, and we get to see that there's a little kid, and then there's a baby. Oh my God. Were you expecting that?
No, I was like, what? How is this even possible?
Yeah. And then they hear a warning, and then they go, and then there's Jules, but it's the point where she's running into the silo and she's frantically tearing off her suit. So that's how we know that this is in the past. But then they take us through all the different scenarios that we've seen Jules go through, which you have called stalker cam, right, Angela? All those moments where like we thought, oh, is there someone else here? Is someone watching her? That's what they basically use, and they show us these kids' point of view. And the girl tells them to ready their weapons, and oh my god, one of them starts prepping what looks like a club that like Negan from Walking Dead, right? A club with like nails on it and everything. But yeah, and then they go to the rope bridge one, and she cuts Jules's rope.
Audrey cuts Jules's rope, but Rick saves her by tossing a plastic jug into the water, which was kind of cool and something that I definitely didn't like remember the flow of what was happening there, because obviously like it's all happening so fast and you're watching it from like Jules's point of view. So that was like interesting to see that how at odds like the kids are.
So the next one is the kids woken up by a boom, which I thought was the vault door opening, but I'm not sure because
you know what it probably is? It's probably when she makes the bridge.
Oh, the bridge. Oh, that's
like when it lands, like when the big thing lands down. Because I was wondering while we were watching it, and I was like, what made that noise?
Yeah, because at first I thought it was a vault door, and then I thought, wait, but that vault door can't be that loud, because then anytime like Bernard goes into the vault, people would be like, oh, what's that noise, right? So
it's not, and like we've seen like Solo surprised her when he came out of the vault, like she didn't even know that. So
okay,
sense. That's probably what it is.
Okay. So they hear the song and they're like, what's that? Because apparently they don't know what music is. And then they watch Solo come out. This was the first episode, right? Or is it the second or third episode, right? It was called Solo.
I think it was 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think it was 3. But yeah, that's when he comes out and he tells her to wait, and they're watching the whole time. But I wanted to note that when they're lying down, like you can see she's got a knitted like sweater or something.
Yeah.
And there's like a granny square blanket on the wall. And I want to talk about this later, but everything in this silo is really colorful. I found that really interesting because like everything from like the children's classroom and like I said, the granny square blanket, it's got colors everywhere. So okay, and then they go to the next scene, which is Solo on the bridge as Jules does her dive. This was the dive to not for the suit dive. It's not the suit dive. It's the
pump dive.
Yeah, the pump dive. Yeah, and then they attack him, which you already knew because he was missing when she came back up. And they show, like, during the battle that her air hose and her rope are cut. And then they drop the axe, and then oh my god, the girl shoots Solo right in the back. I was like, ow! I thought he got
She's
like shot.
ruthless.
I know, I thought he got shot in like the shoulder or something, but no, she like got him right in the back. Ouch. But turns out they want food, and then she wants to kill him, but he says that they can use him to get into the vault, and they carry him and they put him in a shed. And then like Eater is the one who goes. I don't know if that's. I don't think it's Solo's like clothes, but it's similar, like same color. She puts something on and she goes and lays down and waits for Jules, and then they have that fight that we saw at the end of the last episode. And then Eater volunteers to help Jules, and Audrey seems to like really not like her. She says fine. She's because I guess when Jules was threatening to harm her, she was like, "Oh, we don't give a shit about her," which I was like, "Oh," because I kind of assumed that the three of them were a team, and they were all friends, and I don't know. What did you
Yeah,
think?
we learn kind of a little bit later why that's not the case,
Yeah.
though. So yeah, after that, Jules and Eater go to the vault, and Eater's staring at the two bodies. So clearly, she like knows them and knows what happened there. She explains how she got her name, that the parents took her in, and that the other two blame her for the death of their parents.
And they call her Eater because she's just
Yeah, because
another mouth to
she's just another mouth
feed.
to feed. It's very sad.
Yeah. Although
Um,
people were commenting and saying, why is she giving her such a hard time being another mouth to feed? And yet she's having babies. She's
I
making
know,
more mouths to
right?
feed.
I was like, I can't believe they have a baby.
Yeah.
But I guess there's no birth control put in at birth,
Yeah.
when the silo's dead. So
Actually, I think they put it in. It's not when they're born. It's like at a certain point. There's some kind of like initiation ritual or something. It was in the pact document stuff that we had read. But yeah, the silo was dead when she was born, so she wouldn't have had that. But Eater does find like it looks like a pay stub or something for Russell, the head of IT, and it
yeah, or
has his
like
address on
mail
it.
or
Yeah, or
something.
something. But then they go to his apartment, and it's like covered in dust, but they see like a table with like eggshells on it. So it's like I don't know, like an interrupted breakfast or something, because there's a kid's lunchbox on the table, and then Jules is checking in a closet, and she finds a backpack that says RC on it, which is Russell Conroy since they're in his apartment. But when Eater asks what it is, she like shakes it off. But she looked really surprised, and they reveal what it is later. But this is where I noticed more of the colorful stuff. The windows in Russell's apartment were like almost like stained glass. They were like very colorful,
Huh.
and I don't know, because I guess I kind of thought that people use windows even if they don't lead to the outside. I guess I kind of thought that they would look out at whatever they did, but it kind of seemed like they were just using them purely as decoration. So it was pretty,
Yeah, in 18, like they're just kind of these like
standard.
whitish, opaque,
Yeah,
like light boxes, which I think are
yeah.
just supposed to kind of simulate like brightness for the
Hmm.
apartment. Silo 17 seemed to have a lot more fun than Silo 18, at
I
least when
know.
you're comparing like what Jules talks about and what Solo talks about.
Yeah, yeah,
Although to be fair, in Solo's version of Romeo and Juliet, they die, and
yeah.
apparently not in Silo 18.
But
So
maybe they're happier in general in 17, and they feel like they can handle tragedies or something.
that's a good point.
But so Jules figures out that the numbers on the chalkboard were for the vault, which was, oh my god, which was something that everybody was talking about. And we were counting beeps and we are saying, oh, the Solo only entered four numbers on his vault, and Bernard entered five, and the chalkboard said six. And we were all like, no, that can't be. It can't be vault numbers. But it turned out to be vault combinations.
I actually almost thought that wasn't going to be relevant. Like, I know I shouldn't have thought that because obviously they've mentioned it multiple times, but in my head I was like, what there's no way these numbers are going to tie back into the plot, right? Like, how would that make any sense at all?
Plus, there's so
But then
many
it made perfect
combos, and
sense.
I was just like, it's sequential. How long were they trying that? They must have. I mean, but then I guess it must have been like all
Years
of
probably.
Solo's life, right? So they get
They get three
three tries
tries
a
per
day.
24-hour
Yeah.
period.
So we get a little bit more about Eater and her tragic story. or her sad existence, she asks why the cubbies have two names, and then Jules has to explain that, oh, one is your first name and one is your last name, your family name. And she says, oh, my mom only gave me one, and she doesn't even have that one name now because she's just referred to as like
Yeah, she doesn't even say what it
some.
was.
Yeah, I think they'll
I
probably
love
reveal that later.
Oh, definitely. I love how Jules, like, sometimes, like, responds to direct questions and then sometimes doesn't, like, depending on how she feels, like, in the moment. Like, sometimes people ask her, like, what she perceives to be, like, irrelevant questions, and she just, like, is like, no, 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 we need to focus. Don't ask me dumb
Yeah.
questions. And then other times she just sort of absently is like, well, one's the first name and one's the last name. And yeah, mine's, Nichols or whatever.
I do find it funny too is that like she's been so focused and she's been like not thinking about all these things, but she's actually heard them, like all these things that they bring back, she actually recalls them, right? And she's able to figure things out. But we are joking today that, oh, we figured this out weeks ago, Julia. You're only figuring this out now. So they go to the vault and they're trying out combinations, and I guess Jules is upset because she's tried two and she doesn't have any more. She only has one more try left. But then this is where she figures out that Solo was just a kid during the rebellion, because she talks to Eater and she asks how old she was, and she says, oh, she wasn't even born yet, and that her own mom was just a baby. So that has Jules thinking back to when she was talking to Solo about the girl in the classroom he used to sit next to, and then that's when she figures out how old he was. And I didn't notice this until like I went back to go watch it after I watched it the first night. But while she's figuring this out, behind Jules is a blood stain on the wall. And we find out later what that is.
Yeah, this scene kind of annoyed me because, like, I get that Jules has been, like, distracted this whole time. Like, she's
Mm-hmm.
obviously very singly focused on getting back to her silo, but it just seemed really obvious to me that, like, what had happened here, right? That
Yeah.
Solo was probably a kid when this happened, that he was lying to her about things, that this happened long enough ago that he was a child, and just his general behavior kind of seems childish. And I don't know, the fact that it took her this long to sort of realize it and put it together, like, annoyed me. I don't How did you feel about it?
Well, the other thing too is when that scene originally happened, and she's like, "Why are you saying this?" She would, this is a level B classroom, and she's talking about that. When that actually happened, I thought that she was suspicious at that point and that she had a hunch.
Same.
So when she just has this realization, she's like, "Oh fuck!" I was just kind of like, "Oh, I thought you kind of had an inkling of
Yeah.
this earlier,"
I
you
was
know.
like,
So
"Wait, did you buy his, like, really horrible cover-up story that he tried to, like, give to
yeah,
you?"
yeah, because he's not a very subtle liar. He's not very good at it. His tone of voice is like, "Oh, well," you know, you can tell when he's lying. So
Yeah, I think you're really just supposed to, like, put that up to
yeah,
being her, like, super focused, but it did kind of annoy me because I feel like she, like you said, she has all this great attention to detail and this
yeah,
great
yeah,
recall, and I think she's very smart in how she processes information, so, like, the fact that that kinda didn't get put together for her, like, didn't make a lot of
yeah,
sense to me.
yeah. So Jules and Eater go back to talk to Rick, and Jules demands to speak to Solo, and the way that Eater helps convince Rick is she hands him his mother's bracelet, which she took off one of the bodies, and then Jules gets led in, and she speaks to a really distraught Solo, who's just, I don't know, he just looks like he's,
He broke
yeah,
down,
he broke
yeah.
down, exactly. He's whimpering that he failed, and she tells him that she knows that he wasn't his shadow, he was his son. But then they go to Audrey, and she had given Jules until her baby cries, right? Until her baby wakes up for her next
Yeah.
meeting. And
That's, like, the
so
longest baby nap ever, by the way.
but then the baby cries, like, oh, time's up, and she just goes and she wants to go kill Solo. So she brings her bow, and I just want to say that community reaction to her has been largely super negative. Everybody seems to hate Audrey, right?
I kinda hated her too, so I can understand that.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, people need to understand that she has obviously been through a lot. She's had a baby. She's had to have that baby by herself with no, like, it doesn't look like there's any other women around to help her. And so she had to do that largely by herself. And her kids are her, there's another boy, Benny. He's young. And I guess he's just a kid that they picked up. I don't know what happened to his
Oh, I thought
parents.
he was the isn't he their so okay, yeah, this confused me and I had to like read someone else talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, so Tess and Chase are like the adults who are the corpses outside the vault. And Tess is apparently the mother of Rick
Yeah.
and Chase is the father of
Father of
Audrey. So they're
Audrey.
not
Yeah.
related in any way,
Yeah.
Rick and
Yeah.
Audrey. But Tess and Chase, I think, became a couple and
Oh,
they
okay.
gave birth
Okay.
to Benny, the
Oh, okay.
kid. And then Rick and Audrey were like stepchildren who also got together and they became and they have the baby. And then yeah,
Ah.
Eater is the one who like isn't related to them. She was just
Yeah, yeah,
taken
yeah.
in by Tess and Chase, I guess. I had to like I watched the scene actually twice and I read a comment online because it was a little bit confusing to figure out who was
Ah.
who there.
Wow, that's really complicated.
I was just like, wait, are they related? And my husband was like, no, there's no way they're related. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, I doubt they're related. I just couldn't figure out how they weren't related.
But yeah, so they question Solo because they're upset that they had referred to him earlier as just the killer. They didn't know that his name was Solo because when Jules mentions that he's Solo, Eater is like, that's his name? And so
Yeah, like why is that his name? And Jules has like
yeah.
this awkward like oh, it's not his name. It's like a thing he calls himself.
Yeah, it's funny because she just explained to her that you can have two names, but he has like a made up
And then
name
this is
too.
neither his that Solo is neither of them.
Yeah. But yeah, he's crying. He's talking about how he was sleeping when Chase and Tess got the right combination, got into the vault, and he had left his gun by the door, and they took it and they shot him in the stomach. And the way that he acted this scene was so good. He was so like vulnerable, and I felt so sorry for him. Like when she asked, "Oh, do you have a scar?" and he just touches it, like he's because I mean, I I guess he must have been, I don't know, not that much younger than he is now, but still, like getting shot and then having to recover on your own is probably really traumatizing too. So, but yeah, he shows them his scar, and it looks like it's on the left side of his stomach.
Like stomach, yeah, abdomen.
Yeah, so he's actually lucky he survived that. But then he explains how he broke off the inside handle on the food vault, and then he locked them in, and then they suffocated. Which made me wonder, like, what did they? I mean, how long did that take? I mean, it must have taken a decent amount of time. So, what did they do? They did just eat a lot of food until they died, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how big the vault is, but I mean, it could have been hours. It could have been days, I guess.
I mean, if it was me and I was locked in there, I'd be like, I'm gonna eat everything in here. Although I guess I would have made you sick, especially if you weren't eating very much before. So Jules had brought the lunchbox that they found in Conroy's apartment, and I think it had his first initial on it. I think it was J. Conroy, but Jules is able to piece together that he was Jimmy Conroy based on the cubbyhole name. And she begs Audrey not to kill him. She explains that he was only 12 during the rebellion, and then they show a flashback to Jimmy because he's saying that he's not a hero, that he's a coward, and he's a failure. And he says that all he had to do was open the door, and he didn't. And then they show that the sheriff was yelling at him to open the door, and Russell was there too, yelling at him not to open the door, and then he accidentally killed him. And this takes us back to what we saw in the season premiere when the
Mm,
sheriff is telling I guess the wife was, because we saw her like helping clean his face, right? So
yeah.
apparently that was the blood that splashes onto his face. He accidentally kills the sheriff, and I we had guessed that this is what happened because he says, I didn't mean to, my finger slipped. So, but doesn't we actually get to see it? And we actually get to see that it happens literally in front of Jimmy. And this is the traumatic event that has made Solo the way he is and acting like we've known for a while that he seems to carry like a huge amount of guilt, right? I think we had thought that maybe he felt guilty for the Silo dying, but I guess it's more he just feels guilty. that his dad died because of him, which is bad
Yeah,
enough.
I think it's probably like a lot of stuff. He probably feels guilt about that. He probably feels guilt about Tess and Chase.
Hmm.
He's just a kid mentally, so you have to think about like how a kid would react to that sort of thing. They like kind of always think things are their fault.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I teared up. I thought this was
I
very
did
well acted
too.
and like it was very sad, very
It
emotional.
was. It was just the look on the boy that they chose for this role was really good. Just he said a lot with just his face, and I think he only said one word. He just said "dad." So, but yeah, so Jules tries to convince Solo that it wasn't that his dad was trying to get him to protect the silo. He just wanted to protect him because I think he could have safely assumed that if Jimmy opened the door, he just wanted to keep him safe. So but then he tells him that they have a baby, that the kids have a baby, and that seems to get through to Solo, and he understands that it's not so bad to open the vault if it's to give them food because they have a baby. But oh my god, when like he led them to the door and like he's putting in the code, I was like, oh my god, finally, here we go. I wanted
I
to
was so
see.
excited to see the vault. Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, I had thought all the way back when Jules got her like she collapsed from her arm injury. I thought that she was gonna wake up in the vault, but oh my god! And then I'll have to wait all the way until episode 9. But it was so cool. It was cluttered, but it was so cool, and it was way cooler than Bernard's vault, which is very. Is there another word for boring?
I mean, I think it's sterile, really,
Yeah,
because no one
that's
lives
a good
there,
word.
right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
Solos was so cool because it's like the set design was so cool on it because it really did look like it was lived in.
yeah,
Like they did a good job of like making it look like you said, like cluttered and like messy and just like the ramblings of a crazy person.
yeah. Because in Bernard's one, all the relics are on nice set shelves with lighting on them and everything. But in Solos, it seems like he just took everything down and started playing with everything. So, and he just created his own. Not, I mean, is it a man cave or is it a boy cave? Probably both, right? He's even got drums. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, I was like, wait, are these a relic? Like, doesn't the silo know what drums are? Like, they have music. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
they
I don't
did
know.
anyway.
But so this was like the one disappointment for me. Solo tells them he was going to heat up some food, but he has something better. He's got ice cream. And then they just cut to the kids walking around eating ice cream very casually. And I was like, what? They didn't show like them getting their first taste of ice cream.
I literally didn't even notice that that was ice cream until someone said it in the discussion thread on Reddit, and
Oh,
I went back and like found a picture. Like someone posted like a picture of it,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
in a
It's what a
thread.
metal canister or something.
Yeah, and it says chocolate ice cream on the canister in a very like lost
Lost.
Dharma initiative kind of way. Like it's just like the most generic like packaging you can think of. But when I was watching the episode, I actually thought they just had canisters of like soup or something, kind of like
Uh,
what he had given to Jules.
I mean, I had a whole blog called Fictional Food long time ago. I am very much fixated on people's food experiences. So as soon as he said ice cream, I was like, oh yes, we're gonna get to see these kids trying ice cream for the very first time. But no, they're just casually walking around eating it. Ugh. Uh, I bet you they filmed it too. They just cut it. And then he tells me it's something even better than ice cream and it's music. And he plays Monster Mash for them, which I thought was really cute.
Yes, also that line doesn't land when you don't realize they're not eating ice cream. Like I was like, "Wait, why did he say ice cream? Do they know what ice cream is?" Yeah, like
Yeah.
the whole thing was very confusing to me. I'm normally better at tiny details. I don't know what I was thinking about in that moment. I was probably looking at all the other stuff going on in the vault. Like that was the problem with those scenes is
Yeah.
that they're very short and they're like sensory overload and I'm
Yeah.
here like looking
Yeah.
at the background and not the current action going on.
Yeah, because
I do that in
even
horror movies too. Like I'm just always looking at the background because that's what you're trained to do.
yeah. Because it even looked like he had like origami birds hanging from the ceiling, and
I know,
he
everything was so
had,
cool.
I know, he had so many, he had
And
like done a lot
Jules
of,
is, like, looking around too, like,
yeah.
she's looking up at, like, the solar system thing, so I was, like, watching what she was looking at, and there's a lot going on.
If you haven't seen it, there is a bonus content. Under the bonus content for the Silo main page, there is a video, a featurette, a behind the scenes featurette with Steve Zahn, where he takes you on a tour of Solo's vault, and they show so much, and in so much, like they go slowly so that you can see, and he like sits at his desk and he plays the guitar, and it's really cool. So definitely go check that out. They give you a much more relaxed look at it rather than just like while you're watching it as the kids walk around in there. But so next comes this really touching part, which I loved, when Jules tells Solo, "Hey, I found another suit." And they share like this funny moment where he's just like, "Oh, yeah, sorry I didn't tell you about that." And she's like, "Yeah, I got shot and I got." She like went through all this other crap, right, to find that other suit. Meanwhile, he already had one. And he's like covering his mouth, trying not to laugh. But then he asks her, "If you found the suit, why didn't you just leave?" And she doesn't answer, and he just touches her shoulder like, "Oh, you stayed for me," kind of thing. It was really cute.
Yeah, I think deep down she, like, really does care about people, like, she's kinda brusque and
Mm-hmm.
awkward on the surface sometimes, but, I mean, she has to, right? Because that's what got her into all of this in the first place was, like,
Yeah,
caring.
yeah. But yeah, so that wraps up all the stuff in 17. But there was a whole lot going on in 18. And I just want to say that I actually really liked how it was balanced between the two silos in this episode. It just felt so disproportionate in the last several episodes, where there was tons of 18 and 2 minutes of 17, or like, like most of the episode focused on 18 and all these different plot lines that we had to follow. And then 17 was just inching along. I really would have liked it if it had been similar, more similar to this one, where 17 was just as meaty. A thought that I had while I was watching it the first time was, I wish we had seen this like during episode 5. I felt like we should have been at this point much earlier, and that they could have put a lot more in about the 17 storyline. You know what I mean? Instead of just like stretching it out and making us wait and like getting really frustrated.
Yeah, I agree that, this feels more like a midpoint, like the kind of
Hmm.
meeting new people
Yeah.
and, like, expanding what's going on and then, like, turning that into its own, like, second half of the season, like, issue, right? Like, yeah, I agree. I agree that I would have liked more progress on 17 earlier, but I did like the balance here, like you said, and on top
Hmm.
of that, I think 18, like, even the cuts that were going on in 18 felt more natural and not as,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
rushed.
Yeah. It was still a little choppy, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was last week. So I didn't really pay attention too much to it, which is how it should be, as we were saying last week. But 18 starts with Lucas reporting to Bernard part of the letter. And he says that there are 50 silos. And then Bernard tells him that there are 51, which a lot of people were like, "Oh my God." And one thing that I thought was really interesting was that Salvador Quinn says there are 50, Solo says there are 50, but Bernard knows about this extra silo. So Bernard has more information than Solo and Quinn somehow.
I didn't really read it that way, like, I just thought they were excluding whatever, like, the 51st silo
Hmm.
is, like, because Salvador Quinn says they didn't build 1 silo, they built 50,
Hmm.
and, like, the "they" in that case to me, it means, like, the 51st silo
Hmm.
or I guess maybe the first silo, like, silo 1 or whatever, like, where you're gonna call it. And I think the same might be able to be said for Solo. Like, I think he's just talking about, like, the non-control
Yeah.
silos.
Yeah. So I wasn't. I don't know if I was a fan of like the things that they had Billings doing on this episode. I liked his scenes in the past, but like he goes and he meets with Shirley and Knox, and he's like talking about how Juliet opened his eyes, and Shirley scoffs at him, and they tell him that they want to contact Camille, and I guess that that's what they needed Billings to be at this scene for. But I don't know. Like, what did
Yeah.
you make of this one? Just I don't know. I don't know that it really added that much to the episode. So
Yeah, this is like a coming together that I expected to happen. Like I've been like waiting for it, like the
mm-hmm.
like pulling Billings into mechanical, pulling Camille and Sims into mechanical because I kind of thought that would be where like their plot line was going as well. I don't particularly I don't know. I'm never that invested in these scenes compared to some of the other stuff that's going on with the like Lucas and the mystery of the silos and Silo 17 and stuff. So yeah, I don't
It just kind
know.
of felt like over explaining, you know, like they've been going through all these things showing how Billings is going to join mechanical kind of stuff, but I feel like they could have just skipped this and had Billings show up to something and be like, I'm with you guys now, blah blah blah, you know, you just say it in like one line and then we would just know, okay, he's with them now. We don't need to know like all the tiny little details, I think. So
Yeah, and I also didn't really like how Shirley treated him in this scene.
yeah.
Like I mean, I think we've spoken before about how I think we find her character like a little grating sometimes, or maybe I said that and you didn't. I don't remember, but I find her character a little grating, and I thought she was not showing Billings nearly as much grace here as she could have given how much Billings has like stuck his neck out for mechanical.
Yeah, because I mean, I have said in the past that I really like Shirley, but even in this, for even me, like in this case, I was like, wow, why is she being such a bitch today? You know, because she's just telling Billings, oh, that's a nice speech, but what the hell, you're useless, you know? So, and she was kind of like that last week too, right? When they're in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Knox and Shirley reveal that they want to contact Camille for help because she helped them get down. And then they go to Patrick, and he has a very dangerous conversation with Kathleen. He's asking her to remember
Oh
what
my
Allison
god.
said. What, oh my god, right? The things that, like, when they were talking, I was like, oh my god, what are you doing, man? You're putting Kathleen in so much danger.
I not even just that, but I was just like, "Oh no, you're all wrong. Like you're
Yeah,
so wrong. Everyone comes to the wrong conclusion. How is this
yeah,
possible?"
danger, danger, stop.
And this is like this comes up a lot on the subreddit actually of like, you know, is Bernard really a villain?
hmm
Like pushing his actual legit villainous stuff aside, like the murders he's committed, is his like overarching goal villainous? And like
Yeah.
whenever I see these conversations happening, all I can think is like, at least Bernard's trying to keep them on the right track
Mhm.
here, but like then you
Mhm.
have all these people undermining him who know nothing, and like we the viewer know that they're wrong.
Yeah.
So
But then at the same time, another part of you would be like, well, if he would just tell them everything, maybe they would be a little more chill. You know, maybe they'd be like on his side.
yeah, but you know that that's not how humans are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. People
You know that
act
if he told them
irrationally.
everything, they like wouldn't believe him.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And that's like partially his fault, right? That he's set himself up to be like untrustworthy. So. Okay, and then they go back to Lucas. He is decoding the last part of the letter. He said, "It says, reason be damned. If you don't believe me, go to the very bottom of the silo, find the tunnel, and you will get confirmation there." And so this leads us to something that really bothered me about Bernard. So Lucas goes to Bernard, or he goes to Amundsen. He's like, "Where's Mayor Holland? I need to find him. It's like life and death." And he's like, he's not to be disturbed. And the reason he's not to be disturbed is he's been sitting in janitorial by himself just watching Walker all day long.
Yeah, like 24/7.
It's
Yeah.
creepy for one thing, but at the same time, like, really? Is that his only game plan right now? Is just to watch Walker literally doing everything? It's bizarre. I don't get it. So Amundsen blows him off, and Lucas has to take things into his own hands. And so that's when he starts to go downstairs. And I would like to say that Amundsen is officially the head of the Dicks department because, oh my God, the way he treats him, ah, so aggravating. The way his facial expressions, I think that's what irritates me the most. The way he just looks at him. I don't know. Then they go back to Walker. She's telling Knox that her agoraphobia is back, and I think this is just an excuse because she's not allowed. Bernard has told her that she's not allowed to leave her workshop, so this is just what she says. And then
Yeah.
Knox tells Walker that they have the sheriff, which Bernard already knows. And he says that they're going to take control of this island. The first thing they're going to do is free Carla, which is what Martha wants. And then as soon as he leaves, Martha gets a message from Bernard, and then they chat. And
He like threatens her again,
yeah,
to stay inside and keep, feeding them information. Although it was very like funny to me because on one hand he's like, I need to find out what's happening with the rebellion and you need to do this for me, but also you can't leave your apartment.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, well, how is she supposed to find out anything then? Just hope that
Somebody will
Knox
come
keeps
in.
coming down and telling her things.
Like you would have thought he would have been like, okay, next, I want you to fix all these cameras and go put them up or something like that, right? Because she's like Miss Fix It for the Down Deep. So, but yeah, instead he just sits there and watches her, and this goes into later too. Like she's sleeping and he's still watching her. He's watching her sleep, and Knox comes back in. Oh my god, it's weird. Okay, so next they have Lucas, and he's going to see his mother at the hospice, which is what Sims had talked about last episode when he is threatening him. And he gives her the copy of the pack, Quinn's copy of the pack for safekeeping. And then he admits to her that he is a coward because he lied to Jules about helping her, and that he's the only person who looks after his mom. And obviously, with this scene, she's perfectly fine. She's perfectly capable. She works in the hospice. She doesn't live in the hospice. And then you think back to like how things happened with Lucas. He was in Jules's apartment, I think, right? And she was asking him for help with the hard drive, and then he said this. And the next thing he knows, he gets arrested, he gets sentenced to the mines, and Jules gets sent out to clean. So the last thing he did was he lied to her to get out of helping her. So he's basically telling his mom that he's like been suffering from under like probably a lot of guilt, right?
Yeah. But also it hasn't been that long. Like
Yeah.
it's worth keeping in mind that it hasn't actually, like, all of this
Less
has
than a
happened in a
week.
very short amount of time. About, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe about a week.
Then Bernard meets with the sheriff's department, and he informs them that Paul was behind some kind of thwarted gunpowder or terrorist attack, and that they're stripping him of his badge, but they're leaving the position vacant. And I thought like they were kind of chill about it. Like they look kind of like bummed, but I would have thought they would have reacted a little more.
I actually kind of thought that they didn't seem like they were buying what he was selling anymore.
Mm,
Like they kind of seemed like baffled. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I guess you're right in that they had a very like demure response to it, but like as I watched the people, I was like, I don't know. I think his excuses to people are like wearing thin at this
No, yeah,
point.
I agree there, but I just felt like they should have been more disturbed because basically what he's doing is he's taking all the power, right? With no sheriff, he's both the IT head and he's the mayor. The judge is dead, so all the power is in his hands, which is something that all people should worry about in any society when all the power is ending up in one spot. So, but at the same time, these people might not be knowledgeable enough about this kind of stuff to realize that this is bad, right? So
Yeah, I think there's been like a lot of upheaval lately, so they're probably kind of like wondering what they should do and like and not everyone is inclined to just sort of like immediately question authority, so they
mhm,
might just
mhm.
be like, "Yeah, it's been a rough few weeks. Like, let's just get through this."
Especially if they're bred to be this way, right? They're bred to be sheep.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Lucas gets through the barrier. He gets taken down to Shirley after some scuffle with some other people, and then he convinces her to take him down to the Digger Cavern. And I don't know like how he knew that she was someone to talk to. Do you know?
No. I
I guess
think
he was
because
just taking a
like
chance.
cuz he knew she knew Jules?
Yeah. Okay, and so someone comes to the barrier to see Billings. I guess he had sent like a letter through a raider or something. And then Knox figures out who the traitor is. And then at the barrier, it's Sims. Did you think it was going to be him? I don't know why, but I was just like, I don't know
No.
who's going to be showing up.
I
And
had
then
no idea.
when he showed up, I was like, oh, it's Robert. But yeah, and so he gives him some snide remarks about, no, I didn't walk down 100 floors. And we were joking today during the watch party that he's just pissed that he had to walk down 100 floors and sweat in his precious leather jacket. But yeah, that's a long way to go. And then Billings basically just said, "Oh, I wanted your wife, but since you're here, this is how I was
Yeah, that
gonna
was like a
talk to
huge
her."
diss.
I know, really, yeah. Dig in more on Sims. Your wife's the important one. But yeah, so he gives him the page, and this part actually confused me a little bit because I had gone back to look at something while I was making this week's quiz, and it happened to be the part. It was the episode "The Relic" when Jules is looking at the book, and they show that the people in janitorial are watching her look at the book, so they've seen that book before. Maybe not from the like a perfect angle, but they've seen it. They know what it is, I guess, because that's the episode where it's like, oh, we gotta go wake him up, but it's the middle of the night, and they're worried, and it's Sim. So he, I think, has known about this book, and I think he was looking for it right in the first season, but he never found it. But I don't
Yeah.
know. There was footage of him watching. There was footage of them watching her as she paged through the book. So I don't know. I guess it's still worth like leverage to turn it over, but
I mean, I had no idea why he was turning it over.
mm-hmm,
It it seemed less like he was turning it over for leverage and more like he was more like the page has now become like a symbol to
mm-hmm,
rally around. Like if I show this, if Sims and Camille see this, they'll also like be on our side
mm-hmm.
or whatever. It's like kind of represents the idea of like,
Rebellion. Yeah.
the perfect world and rebelling to get there.
Yeah, and this is kind of like what they've been brewing, right? Camille is like siding with Mechanical, but also trying to stay on the good side of Bernard. And Sims is at odds with Bernard. And okay, so then they go back down to the cavern, and Lucas and Shirley are talking, and he tells her about the tunnel. I don't think there was a whole lot to this part. There was one funny bit where he tells Shirley that he tried to kiss Julia, and she's like, "Oh, you're still alive."
Yeah, this is mostly just rehashing things we already have seen, but I guess maybe viewers would have maybe forgotten
Yeah,
in the past
forgotten.
like year since the first season aired.
So let's go ahead because they cut away from this, but Lucas help or Shirley helps Lucas set up the rope and says good luck, and then she just leaves.
Yeah, how is he going to get back up? Did you wonder that? I wondered that.
Okay, so there is this scene in the trailer that everybody has been wondering about where Lucas is climbing up a ladder on a rock wall or something. So I think that's how he gets back up. But
Oh.
people have been wondering, oh my god, is that Lucas in the mines? But I think it's probably just from this area. He's just
Yeah,
that's how
when
he
she
gets
just
back
left
up.
though, I was like, "Wait, she's not going to like help him like
I
finish
know,
this? What if he drowns?"
I know. Good luck, Shirley. She's heartless sometimes. But yeah, so and then I was saying today too that this was a little bit more, this was kind of just as unbelievable as like the trash shoot thing because Lucas is an IT nerd. He's gonna go climb down this rope by himself with his arms, his noodle arms. Did you?
And
Because
then
rope,
just hope the water is like not as deep, like hope that he's right.
I know it was just a guess, right? I don't think he knows how to swim either, probably, right?
I don't think any of these people know how to swim.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so then it goes back to Walker. There's a knocking at her door, and it's Knox, and he says he knows who the traitor is, and he says it is Teddy's mom. But the way that he's talking about it, it seems kind of obvious, and a lot of people are saying this, is that he's just talking in code, right? He knows that it's Walker.
Yeah, he says like he alludes to some things like, "Oh, you have to do things for the people you love," and it's like clearly a reference to her and Carla.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty obvious, and I think most people on the internet seem to think that this is just like a canary trap, like he's
yeah.
going to give bad information through her to Bernard.
Okay, and then they take us to the Sims, and they're talking about what to do. And then Sims tells Camille about the 18 fob that he's seen Bernard with, and that every time it blinks or buzzes or whatever, he goes somewhere and he comes back. He says that the last time it happened, he came back and said he had to be mirror. So he suspects that there's someone giving Bernard orders. All right.
Yeah, he specifically says that Bernard goes to the server room every time this
Yeah.
happens, and
Yeah.
and Camille's like, "What could be in the server room other than servers?"
It's kind of heavy-handed here, but I did want to like say like what I didn't understand why they had it where like Sims has been like episode after episode after episode like this guy is so dumb. This guy looks so dumb. They're making this guy look so dumb. And then all of a sudden in episode 9 he's like I understand this plot. He he's just like Bernard is entering to a higher power. Just thought it was a little weird that just like he's been dumb 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 today smart.
Yeah, this is like literally the only piece of information he's ever had that like no one else had. That like
Yeah.
he's seen Bernard with this like 18 key fob thing.
All right, so this brings us to the end of the episode, which, oh my god, was so exciting. Lucas falls into the
This was
water,
the
and
best part.
I know it's shallow. And this is actually something that George had said before. I think it was in he left a note for Jules, and then he got like thrown over the side or something. But he was basically telling her that he went down to the tunnel, and the water turned out to be a non-issue. And so we find out what it is when Lucas falls in. He stands up, and it's like only going up to like his thighs or something. But yeah, so he goes to the tunnel, and at the end of it, a light turns on, and the algorithm is just like Lucas Kyle. I was like, holy shit. I was not expecting that.
I was absolutely like I don't know what I expected. Like I expected there to be like a door and I expected Lucas to like fret over it
How
or
am I going to
open
open
it
it,
or
right?
yeah, and like instead like this giant spotlight from overhead turns on and this
It's
like
like,
voice comes
God.
down from on high.
It's the Wizard of Oz. But yeah, so he says that only 3 people had reached that point before, and it was Salvador Quinn, it was Mary Meadows, and it was George Wilkins, but he didn't speak to Wilkins. And I think this is because George didn't have a blue badge. He wasn't the IT shuttle, so he didn't have clearance to speak to them. So I think what
Yeah.
happened, I'm guessing what happened is George just got there and no lights turned on. He just found the door and he couldn't get it open, obviously. And then he tries to go up to go tell Jules what he found, and then he gets killed. So that's the end of George's little mission down there. But that starts Jules's.
That is funny though because like George could have easily told like many people that there was a door down there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Maybe they were setting it up so that you know Juliet is his girlfriend, and they had talked about it when they were in that bed area that she was worried about him going down in the water, and he said that she made him promise not to tell her until it was over.
Yeah, I think I just meant more like the fact that the voice didn't speak to him just seemed weird because I was like for all the algorithm knows, he George could have gone up there and told everyone about
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tunnel and the door and there could have been a whole horde of people going down there. So the
Well,
fact that he's not in power, like I'm just like
I think what he's not supposed to talk about, though, Lucas specifically, the algorithm says that you're going to be given a directive. And Quinn and Meadows were given a directive that they could never speak about. So that's what they're not supposed to talk about, is whatever they tell them about.
yeah, no, I guess you're right now that I think about it. I just assumed that that the algorithm kind of meant like everything, but you're right, it's probably just a reference to the directive.
Yeah. So we don't hear what that is, but I was speculating that we know that Quinn got down here, and then 143 years ago he went back upstairs and he destroyed the servers, he burned the books, and he drugged everybody. So that was his directive. We don't know what Meadows' directive was, but we know that she probably just didn't do it. She just went upstairs, she quit being Shadow, and then she drank for the next 30 years. So and then it tells him that if he does speak about it, they will be forced to initiate the safeguard. And this was like one of the few frustrating parts of the episode, because the episode is called the safeguard, but they don't say, like, they don't really use it until the end. I mean, it's on the paper that Lucas is decoding, but they don't really make it an issue until like the last second of the episode. So it asks him if he knows what it is, and he says yes, and then that's where the episode ends. But everybody seems to agree that the safeguard is some kind of thing that's going to kill everybody. So,
Yeah, I think that's the obvious way to go with it. So like I'd be surprised if it doesn't go that way. Maybe the writing will surprise us though. Who knows?
mm-hmm. But yeah, really exciting ending. We've been frustrated week to week going with the different kind of cliffhangers, but this one was really good. This was top notch, very entertaining.
Yeah, I for the final several minutes, like from when that spotlight turns on to the end, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. It was like opening the hatch in Lost
Yes,
awesome.
yes. I had goosebumps. I was like, oh my god, what is going on? Okay, community reactions.
Yeah, people were, I mean, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, people were absolutely like hyped for this episode because it seemed like everything was going very slowly up until now with very few answers. So the reaction online to getting some sort of momentum and some answers was like really positive, really enthusiastic.
Which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved it a few episodes ago personally, but like
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what the next episode brings and like where we're gonna leave this. Cause I've said this before, but I think we're kind of like dovetailing these plots so that we get like two convenient cliffhangers, one from 17 and one from 18, that we can
Mhm.
end the season with. Another community reaction that I saw a lot online was Solo and Juliet's chemistry and just how sweet they were and how well like the relationship seemed to work, and of course that little like shoulder clap at the
Yeah.
end of the Silo 17 plot line.
Okay, so the voice that comes on for Lucas, people have been talking about how they've been debating whether it's AI or it's a human. Like a lot of people are convinced that it's a human, and they're fixating on the fact that the algorithm says we will be forced to initiate the safeguard. You know, so people are saying like, why would
Yeah.
an AI say we? You know, so they're saying that it sounds like it's a human, maybe with like a voice changer or something. And to me, that makes sense because yeah, the use of we does sound strange for a
Yeah.
single entity. So
I've kind of always thought it was a human. Like I know that like the subtitles when that voice is speaking say the algorithm, and I know it kind of like answers questions in a way that make it seem very like computerish, but yeah, I always kind of assumed that the directives and whatever was happening was coming from humans.
mhm. Mhm.
I don't know though. I'm now I'm like torn. What do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, it could be both. You know, it could be that the AI is the thing that was interacting with Lucas because I feel like he wouldn't like be like digging through the legacy, talking to another human necessarily. That could just be a computer, and like maybe like they just use like some kind of voice synthesizer to make the human that's talking to him down below sound just like the algorithm. I don't know.
Yeah. That would be smart in my opinion, like to make everything sound the same and like make
Yeah.
it not seem like there were like make it seem like kind of one person or one entity like knows everything.
Yeah, like I said, the Wizard of Oz, you know, basically just hiding
Yeah.
like what's actually behind the curtain. So but so this actually answers, I think, right? Where this answers where Judge Meadows went for 4 days, and people were saying, "Well, why did it take 4 days?" And I was like, "Well, she lives in the up top, and then she had to go down to the down deep, and she had to do whatever she did down there, and then go back up. So that took a decent amount of time. And then I don't know,
Yeah, and that's not accounting for anything she like, for maybe the day she spent processing her
yeah,
like what had happened
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, like maybe she went back up and she just spent time just sitting in her apartment stunned or something. You know, it could have been anything. But people are also talking about how it's got to be tied somehow to Martha and Carla because they keep mentioning the 25 years ago thing. And so I don't know, maybe Meadows did go talk to Walker and Carla and maybe Walker chose not to do something and then that's what split them up because that's what she's been talking about, right? So,
Yeah, it's also entirely possible, like you were saying earlier, like that it seems like Judge Meadows didn't do whatever directive she was
yeah.
given, but maybe she did. Like
Uh
maybe there was whatever she was told to do, she did in those few days,
yeah,
and
that's true.
maybe that was whatever happened to her was part of that, and it possibly could have involved Walker and Carla. I guess we'll have to wait on that one. Jury's still out for me on whether that's tied together or whether they just like conveniently used that time frame or not. Yeah, I need to see like more evidence. I'm very evidence based when it comes to watching these types of shows.
Do you think we're gonna see it next week?
No. I don't know. I
Second half
don't
of
think
season
so.
3.
I think we got a lot of answers and like a lot of forward momentum in this episode. and I'm not entirely certain we're gonna see that much more in the next episode. I think we might see some like wrapping up of plot lines or like deepening of plot lines, but not necessarily like getting all the answers we want.
Do you think there's going to be any character deaths?
Mm, if you had asked me 2 episodes ago whether I thought there would be a character death in like episode 10 or yeah, episode 10, I would have said yes, and now I'm not so sure. I don't know, maybe that'll be a cliffhanger. Maybe a death will be a cliffhanger.
That basically wraps it up. Once again, the mod team of Silo Series, the Silo Series subreddit, is working with Apple TV, and this week we have some new exclusive behind the scene images. So you can go to the subreddit and take a look at those. We have some really nice ones of like Solo and Audrey and Rick. If you happen to want to look at a picture of Audrey, maybe you want to hate look at it. Because people don't like it. But yeah, we got some cool images. And be sure to go look at that behind the scenes featurette with Steve Zahn, because it's really cool. To finish up what we've been watching, I finished my rewatch of The Boys season 1, 2, and 3, and then I finished season 4. But I think I was supposed to rewatch Gen V too, because when the last couple episodes came up, like these characters popped up, and I was like, "Oh, who are these people?" And I didn't remember who they were. Oops! I finished season 2 of my slow lost rewatch, and I started watching Lockerbie on Peacock, which is pretty brutal, actually. It's not a very fun watch.
We just finished a rewatch of Severance in preparation for next week's season 2 premiere, which I'm glad I did because I had forgotten a lot of plot points that happened in Severance, so I'm glad that I like reminded myself of that. And yeah, that's basically it. We did start watching The Traitors, which is one of our like trashy reality game show things we like to watch to unwind. Yeah, not much out yet, but a few things coming out like in a few weeks that we're interested in. Like you watch Night Agent, right? That's coming out pretty soon for season
Oh, really?
2.
Oh, yeah, I really
Yeah,
like
it's
the
like
first.
it's I think it's the 23rd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some stuff coming out later, like Yellow Jacket season 3 is in February. So there's a few things that we're looking forward to, just not a lot right now.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep. If you're enjoying our podcast, be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts on our discussion. You can join conversations about the show on the Silo Series subreddit and on the Down Deep Discord, where you can participate in discussions with other fans or join our Friday night watch party. One more to go, and we have a lot of fun in these, so make sure you try to join us for that. And after the watch party, there will be a speed quiz on Silo. You can test your knowledge of the show. Next week, someone has generously donated a set of the Silo series paperbacks. So that's going to be our prize for the quiz winner next week. If you want to contact me or Angela, you can leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos, or you can email us at crystal@thedowndeep.net. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.